Yo, 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 what is going on, IK fam? I'm back again today for another Dope Sauce Infinity Kingdom video. And I am excited because this is something that I love talking about. As many of you know, I really always enjoy speaking on what the player psychology portion is for Kingdom Builders. And sometimes it extends to other games as well. And then in addition to that, the expectations that we as players come into Kingdom Builders with based on our current or lack thereof knowledge and experience in these games, depending if it's our first or not. So I want to start off with our topic heading, which is going to be a comment that was posted on one of my videos, and this is a little over a month ago. I was actually just scrolling through some comments recently, and I thought this was a really good comment that Fire Bobby 9487 made. Quantarp had added a little bit to it as well. So let's start off, and then we'll branch off from there after we read. So he says, I kind of feel sad for them that they just want to play the game the way they want, and the game is made to fight against each other. Then there is some group who just joined the server. He's referring to a jumper group here, and control the server. I don't think this is a very nice that has been forced to follow a group, less freedom, and they might quit the game because they can't play the way they want, and been, if attacked by all the group just because they want to play freely. This is just what I personally think. Quantarp says, yeah, an issue with this game, though, is that there is not some order. The server turns into a ghost town later. When they get server going, this might not be as much of an issue, but having some rules is necessary. Carter says, yeah, that's why I say I feel sad for them that they have to follow rules and join the majority, or they have to leave the server and their hard work and time will be gone. Quantarp then ends with, yeah, it would be nice for the game itself to enable any type of play, which I think might be the case with the server battleground they've been talking about. Okay, a lot to unpack here. Let me start with the first part, because this is going to dive really deep into, again, if you like the meta, if you like the player, and even more so the server psychology, if you like to understand why servers trend in the way they do, I'm going to break down a lot here, and this is basically just going to be another masterclass type video. I don't even know how far deep the rabbit hole I'm going to go here, but let's easy breezy beautiful cover girl it on. So first part we're going to start talking about is I kind of feel sad for them that they just want to play the game the way they want, and the game is made to fight against each other. Then there is some group. So let me start here with the first part of Fire Bobby's comment, which is that the game is made to fight against each other. Now, this is true in one part of these types of games. There is PvP in these games, and keep in mind when he says the game is made to fight against each other, I understand what he's saying, as it's a part of the game is, right? Keep in mind, there are many aspects of Kingdom Builders where you do not fight. And part of that is because the main way that you use to actually grow your account is really PvE oriented. It's not PvP. You actually have to do the PvE, which is attacking the barbs, or excuse me, attacking the environment characters, right? In this case, it would be your gnomes or your gnome bosses. And then you also have to do general leveling right through Well of Time to get other EXP scrolls, right? All of these are kind of PvE focused. Every player has to do this in any Kingdom Builder, no matter what it is. I've never seen a Kingdom Builder where you don't have to do PvE to actually progress and level your account. Now, in other games, when you do PvP, there's not really any incentives for the most part, right? Outside of just kind of padding your personal stats. In Infinity Kingdom, though, you have your nobility, right? So in this game, you're able to go in and focus on things such as doing PvP. I shouldn't say focus on doing the actual PvP portion, but just that you can do the PvP portion, right, if you want to boost your nobility rank. And then, of course, you'll just get these additional bonus stats, right? This is a great feature. But diving in more to when he says, right, the game is made to fight against each other, keep in mind, in parts it is, but not as a whole. It's not as far as what the actual focus. The focus is to progress and level your account. Once you get your account to a certain point, and arguably even before that, right, when eventually something like a server versus server comes out, which again, it has already been confirmed. We've talked about this before multiple times, that the devs and the IK team have come out and confirmed that SVS is in the pipeline. There's just no actual to be announced date that has been released yet. Now let's talk about the next part here, which is the next line, which is some group, right? And then you have some group, again, a jumper group, who just joins the server and wants to control the server. I don't think this is very nice of them, right? So keep in mind, and I'm going to break this down a little bit more, because it also ties back into the first point that Fire Bobby made, which is people just want to come in and play the game that they want to play. Let me the thing I'll explain here is, when I first started playing Kingdom Builders, I had zero expectations. I did not come into the game thinking to myself, hey, I just want to play the game that I want to play, and no one else is going to tell me otherwise. No, of course I didn't think that. Most players that come into a new game that they've never played before do not have such a confident perspective or approach on how they're going, on what they're going to do. They're not going to go into world chat on day one and say, guys, no one can control me, I'm going to play the way I want to play. No, what I did, and I would imagine most players can really find similarities here, is you just clicked on everything. You read everything. You were trying to learn the game. Maybe you went out and you asked questions. Maybe you watched some videos. Maybe you found an official Discord or other medium platforms that you could go on to do more resource gathering or more socializing about the game, right? That's what I did. I wanted to try and learn the game that I was playing, as I pretty much do with any new game that I'm getting into, right? More specifically with Kingdom Builders here. And I did the same thing with Infinity Kingdom. Right? When I first found out about the game, I got ported into S4, which is one of the 8 beta servers, and I just went in and learned. Like I said, I clicked on everything, I read descriptions, I played around, I asked questions. That's what I did. I had no expectations, I had no opinion that I was trying to force on people for how I wanted to play the game. I would assume the majority of players fall into this category if you are playing a game for the first time and you don't know anything about it. Now let me break this down for a very simplistic way, right? And let's talk about how do servers play out if nothing happens, right? If there's no groups that go in there, and right, because keep in mind, most of the servers are not susceptible to jumper groups. Most of the servers, just by default, are going to be set up, right? And we'll switch back here. Most of them are going to be set up where you are going in as a player, and you're just going to join an alliance, and you have a bunch of other players that are just starting alliances up, and that's it, right? There's no groups, there's no alliance full of 50 or 60 players that are coming into the server, right? This is more or less, right, at least up until S8 at the time, right? From my knowledge, we were the first, right? Our group in S8 was the first one that actually did like a big jump group that was organized, right? From my understanding, everything from 7 and before was maybe an alliance's worth of a group, or an alliance's worth of players, or less than that. And most servers, I would say the majority of servers are really just going to be, you know, a small group, a handful of players, maybe an alliance's worth of players, or less than that, where it's just individuals and people just kind of making alliances and they're just playing it out. So, as I'm still working on leveling my accounts up, right, I think I'm only at like server 43 or 44. But for this video, we're going to talk about server 43. And I'm going to use server 43, and I'll use 42 and 41, maybe 40, as an example that we run through so I can provide you this base level of foundation to go off of. So, what do I mean when I say that when you don't have any structure or organization in a server, it is pretty much a free-for-all, you have no idea what to expect, and we're going to show you this in multiple ways, again, to establish our baseline. So, let's look at let's start off with the alliance rankings here, right? You have the number 1 alliance here, which is NXW at 37, almost 38 mil. Number 2 is 30.3, right? There's an 8 mil gap. Now, that's pretty decent size as far as for where this power range is. Then you have it getting a little bit closer here from number 2 to number 3. Number 3, number 4, very close, and then you could see it starting to get closer and closer and closer, right, as you start going down, right? Then you'll see the next bump here at 7 to 8, which is almost 2 mil. Again, bump here is about a mil, right? Then you see the next decent-sized bump at 2 mil here from 10 to 11, right? But for the most part, a lot of these are pretty close, right? Now, the the way that any kingdom builder's server or kingdom will trend as far as why you can get away in things like power is because a lot of players, oh, I shouldn't say a lot, some players, to a lot of players, will be wanting to progress their accounts and they want to play for stronger alliances, right? So they'll level up their accounts in hopes of trying to eventually leave their current alliance and join a higher ranked alliance in hopes of trying to get into the #1 alliance, right? Based on their color. Obviously for Infinity Kingdom, right, with red, blue, and green, that is a hope for some, if not many. Now, beyond that, you will have some players that will probably just want to try and join higher ranked alliances because they might think that, okay, well, these higher ranked alliances, maybe some players in here spend money, so if I work myself up and power myself up, I'll be able to get into an alliance that has spenders, outside of people also thinking, let me just get into a higher ranked alliance and climb the ladder. So with that mindset, right, and keep in mind, because not everyone has that mindset, but you only need some people to have that mindset in order for what is happening in a server like S43, just visually, right, at first glance, and we're going to show this across a few other servers, you'll start seeing the power distribution and the gap start getting away from you on the leaderboards, right? And that is because most average alliance leaders, right, for those that just do not have any kind of server or kingdom management experience, or if they haven't played in servers or kingdoms, especially organized and structured ones, for 6 to 12 months at minimum, if not more, where they've been through maybe a couple KVK and SVSs, or they just played it for a while, right, to kind of see what the actual impacts are of having wide power gap, or better yet, if they've just never even played in a server that has actually had a true balance of power where the power gap is really close, right, then they just wouldn't know, right? So it's the age-old thing, like, you don't know what you don't know. Now, keep in mind, this is something that happens in most new servers if there is no structure or organization, right? In every single server right now in Infinity Kingdom, right, with the and again, I'm going off of the ones, not only what I'm familiar with, but because I haven't seen any screenshots or anyone has provided me any information as far as me seeing any balanced servers where the intent was to do that from the beginning. Now, unlike what we did in, for example, S36, where, and there's a video as well that we talked about where we were balancing the server, and you can search that up on my channel, right, where we were in, I think, about a week or 2 weeks, and you had 5 or 6 alliances that were all within a couple 100K of each other. I mean, it was a beautiful sight. And keep in mind, you're going to have points in time where you'll get that, and that's usually up until you get to like your 120. I'd say your 110 to 120 range, right, where it starts just taking longer to upgrade to the next alliance level. So therefore, you are able to stabilize the power gap a little bit sooner until you hit that next peak or then that next cap increase. So, but again, proactively working on that, right, adds a lot of benefit, and we'll talk about that in another video. But the point here is that there's no servers that I know of that have been doing that since day one, with the exception of what we did in S36 and then what we were slightly working on in S8. Now, again, you're noticing the power gap, right? Then let's look at faction power, right? This is another example, and we're going to show this right after. You have 20 alliances here that have a city. There are 33 level 1 cities, right? But you only have 20 alliances. Or, excuse me, there's 33 cities in the RSS Zone 1 district, or in just the zone. I don't know if I should say Zone 1 zone. It sounds so repetitive. But let me show you what I mean. So if we scroll out all the way, and then we go over here to RSS to the Show Resource Zones, you'll see that this perimeter is Zone 1. There are 33 cities here that are in Resource Zone 1. Yet you only have 20 cities in S43 that actually have a city captured, right? This is what happens when there's no structure, right? Or what I should say is this is what can happen, because again, S43 could still be in a good position. I don't know what the dynamics are, but when you visually look at what you're seeing, right? And let me just find where am I going? 42. Let's take a look at 42. Then we'll look at 41. And again, I'm just going to give you 2 to 3 kingdom examples here, just so I can hammer the point home, and then we'll go on to like the next part, is that when a kingdom is starting out, this is what you're going to experience, right? You're going to experience the randomness of just not knowing what is going to happen. Players are going to funnel into higher ranked alliances. You're going to see power gaps that are wide depending on how wide they are, right? Some servers you might see kind of fall into this mega alliance, either one or two type hierarchy system where it falls into that. Now let's look at 42. Okay, let's look at what the power is here. Okay, so 35, 32, 26. Again, notice 2 reds on top, right, which basically puts you at 35 to 26, right? That's almost a 10 mil power difference from red to blue. And then top blue and top green are close, right, which is good. That looks nice. But again, you have a pretty wide gap there. Now let's look at faction power. Let's see how many alliances. Oh, wow. Only 16 alliances have a city here. That's half. That's less than half of how many RSS Zone 1 cities there are. Okay. Now let's take a look at 40. What did I just look at? 42. Okay, we'll look at 41. And then I'll just use this as my last example. And this is what you're going to see. This is how servers trend. And this is why, and I'm going to hammer all of this right back to the initial question that we saw Bobby ask, which is, right, where are you, right, which is why do you want to try and control a server, right, if you don't think it's very nice or whatnot. Keep in mind that, right, jumper groups just on a base level are not going in to control and to, and to dictate, so to speak, with ill intentions. At least most do not. The reason why you would go in as, why am I even collecting stuff here? Weirdness. Okay, sorry, let's go to power. Okay, so power here, this is 41. Okay, so 41, let me see, 33, 32. Okay, this actually isn't bad. This is about a mil difference here for the top, but then you have, let me see here, but then you have red, so you have red in the top 3, and then you have blue, and the next green is at 24. So green's at 24.33, blue has 32.26. So it's okay. This is actually better than 43 and 42. Let's look at faction power. Okay, so 18 alliances, right? A little more than half alliances have a city out of 33 RSS Zone 1 cities that could be captured, right? So still kind of in the same boat there. Now, again, the point of this is to show you that most servers are going to consistently trend in this manner, right? You're going to have cities that are going to eventually funnel to a top group or top set of alliances for the most part. You're going to have power gaps that are usually going to trend most of the time where it's the number 1 and number 2 alliances that are just kind of getting away, right? Or arguably it's the number 1 alliance in each faction, if we're using an Infinity Kingdom example, that are getting away from the rest. Now let's go back to here. And let's continue reading where it says, right, you just want to control the server. I don't think it's very nice to be forced upon a less freedom, and they might quit the game. So keep in mind, players are going to quit the game no matter what, right? Every server is going to have some form of general drop-off. And so because of this, you will there's always going to be reasons that players will become inactive, or they'll become less active, or they'll leave and restart, or they'll just leave and quit the game, right? I mean, this happens in almost every kingdom builder just by default. Now, on the topic of making a jumper group and coming in to a server, right, the thing is that servers are volatile by nature, right? When you have individual alliances, and it doesn't mean, I'm not talking about the players themselves. It goes so much deeper than that. You have players that, especially if you're going into a new server and there's no groups, right? You're having a bunch of individual players that all think a different way about the game. The only way you will find any common ground is if these players all come together and start conversating and communicating and talking out what their vision is for the server, or asking others what their visions are and then trying to see who's aligned. The challenge with that is you're leaving it up to too much chance. Right? There is no guarantee that you're going to be able to form a majority, or that you're even going to be able to find other players that might see things the way you do, which means that what it's going to more or less come down to is the top alliance. It's going to come down to the top alliance or the top group of alliances that all feel a specific way about it, and basically the first group that is formed, in more often than not cases, will be the somewhat dictating group on how things are going to go, unless no one cares and they're just going to play and see how things go, right? And if that happens, again, that's going to lead you to have things like a free-for-all kill event when Contention of Lords comes up. Stage 5 for King of the Hill during that 2-day kill event as well. It's going to have these things be free-for-alls when Contention of Relics comes up. Excuse me, it's probably just going to be a free-for-all. And then you're going to have, more or less, right at the top, number 1 alliance is probably going to have a little bit of an advantage going in to that event, so they're going to be getting more gold constantly, right? Especially if they're having a higher chance of consistently winning it. And on top of the top alliances winning other events. These are all negative implications on just server health as a whole. There's a lot of players that pay attention to where alliances place in server-wide events, along with who is consistently placing there. Right? If they're in an alliance that's never consistently winning an event, and this is for a portion of players, they may try and leave that alliance and join another one. If they can't get into a higher ranked alliance, some of them might leave. I've seen this happen countless times. And this all goes into all of the internal and external factors that a player is looking at when they are going and when they're just participating in the server. So again, the point of doing a jumper group, which again is to hammer away at the point here, is, well, I think I just said point twice. But the reason is you want to go into a server with a group of like-minded individuals so you can provide structure to the chaos that is just happening passively, by default. Because there are no like-minded individuals there until you reach out to these people. But still, you're playing roulette at that point. You have no idea what these players are going to think, how they think, what their vision is. You don't know if they've been leaders before. Have they been good leaders? What's their history? Have they been volatile? And right? Are they just like, we just want to watch everything burn? You have no idea. So that's the whole reason why jump groups not only were created really when they started off in the very beginning, which we did in one of our masterclass videos, but right, that's the reason you would opt to try and join a group, because if you're a player and you're investing money into a server or you're investing a lot of time, you want that server to pan out. You want it to work out. You want it to be a home for your account, and even more so if you're doing it so you can try and find a home for your main account to eventually migrate. Right, these are all areas of why you would want a server to work out, and no one, including myself, trust me, right, would never want to. Right, you always want a server to work, right? But you need to put some effort in to actually making it work and giving it a fighting chance to work, right? And that is by doing things like putting together a jumper group, right? And it's not about taking away less freedoms. Keep in mind, if I was to explain to players why doing an event a certain way is more beneficial to them, not only in the short term, but in the long term, and they agreed with it, all of a sudden it's not about taking away less freedoms, but now they have more knowledge and they have more experience. So now instead of them thinking it's that, it's more of, wow, okay, this is actually just a better way to do it. This makes sense. Okay, let's do it this way, right? So it's all about how you shape the narrative on, do you think it's really about taking less freedom, or do you think it's about utilizing players who have a lot of knowledge and experience in these types of games to advise and support the server, so that way the majority of players can get the most out of playing in those servers, right? And for someone like myself who has a lot of that knowledge and experience, because I've played other kingdom builders, I've been in kingdoms for years. I've played in multiple kingdoms, right? Many people have heard me even talking about how, during my time in other kingdom builders, I've had over 100 plus accounts in one. I've had tens of accounts in others. And a lot of the reason why I did that was to expand my knowledge, expand my experience, go and look at how other servers are managed, go and look at what trends are happening in other servers, what kind of king's mails or server mails are being sent out from other servers, so you could take away good points from them. Right? These are all things that the majority of the player base that plays these types of games does not do. Right? Most players will just load into their home server and that's it. And some of them may think that that's just the way that servers play out, right? Based on what they've experienced in the one server of a kingdom builder, or even a couple kingdom builders that they've played. And that immediately is like a passive way that they just envision or see other servers playing out, whether that be in parts or in whole. So again, it really does go deep, but it's important to talk about this because Right, I often hear people even talk about, oh, well, the server's becoming Farmville now. But the interesting thing is that the game by default is Farmville, because you have to farm on a daily basis to get your account to a point where you can then be more contributing and proficient in PvP. So again, oftentimes I just find it's kind of flipping the script, right, or looking at it from a different perspective that can kind of open and broaden our horizons on what we go into a game with. And so anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. That's pretty much it for me, covering everything I really wanted to touch on. Again, it's a lot to break down as it goes so much deeper, but this is the type of comment from Fire Bobby, right, that I see very often. And that's why I really want, when I saw it, I was like, man, this would be such a fantastic comment to talk about, because it is just something I do. I see all the time from players that are asking, or they just don't understand, they don't know why a group would go into a server and force or put some kind of policies down where this is how it's going to play out, when in turn they just don't know that if you don't do that, then by default, the majority of time, if not all the time, it is just going to be a free-for-all, and that's just going to have so many negative impacts for players and for overall server retention, because I've seen it happen in honestly hundreds of servers across a multitude of kingdom builders. But again, that's why we like to take time to educate, to inform, and to at least explain to the best of our abilities that we can, in hopes that it opens and broadens, right, some of those mindsets from players that just don't know what they don't know. So again, that is it from me. I hope you all enjoyed. I would love to hear in the comments section down below, what do you think about anything and everything I talked about, right? Are you someone who's played Kingdom Builders? You've played in multiple servers, right? Do you notice or see these trends? Have you seen different? Do you think I'm completely off base? Again, anything and everything I would love to hear. This is just my opinion on what I've seen happen for the time that I've been playing these games. And I just hope that at least some people might find some close similarities and at least enjoy the somewhat kind of masterclass rant. Sometimes these usually turn into. But as always, that's it from me. I'm out. Until we catch y'all next time. Peace!